Start recording, and here we go. So this is the yellow wallpaper. It's by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So again, this was written in 1892. So it is very seldom that mere ordinary people like John and myself secure ancestral halls for summer. A colonial mansion, a hereditary estate, I would say a haunted house, and reach the height of romantic felicity. But that would be asking too much of fate. Still, I would proudly declare that there is something queer about it. Else, why should it be let so cheaply? And why have stood so long untenanted? John laughs at me, of course, but no one expects that. John is practical in the extreme. He has no patience with faith, an intense horror of superstition, and he scoffs openly at any talks of things not to be felt and seen and put down in my fingers. So we have two characters so far. So we have John and we have this person as well. So we know that John is, quote unquote, very practical, right? What does it mean to be very practical? It's just like, it's very logical, but to the point where you don't consider maybe people's feelings, right? I'm sure we all know someone like that. He has no faith or patience, an intense horror of superstition, and he scoffs openly at any talk of things not to be felt and seen and put down in figures, right? So maybe he doesn't believe in like luck. He doesn't believe in, oh, I got to throw salt behind my back, stuff like that. John is a physician, so he's a doctor. And perhaps I would say it not to a living soul. Of course, this is dead paper and a great relief to my mind. Perhaps this is one reason I do not get well faster. So first off, we see this here that this seems to be a diary or a journal. And we also see that we're going to say protagonist is sick. So she thinks, hey, because he's a doctor, I'm not getting better. You see, he does not believe I am sick. And what can one do? If a physician of high standing and one's own husband assures friends and relatives that there's really nothing the matter with one but temporary nervous depression, a slight hysterical tendency. What is one to do, right? So, hey, my husband's a doctor. He's apparently a really well-regarded doctor. And they're saying, yeah, no, he says she's fine. Just walk it off. You're just a little depressed temporarily. That's fine. My brother's also a physician and of high standing, and he says the same thing. So we have a third character here. We have her brother. So I take phosphates or phosphites, whichever it is, and tonics and air and exercise and journeys, and I'm absolutely forbidden to work until I am well again. So forced rest, right? What do you have to do? You have forced rest. So, so one thing we know today is that, hey, routines, work, school, those are good things for your mental health. Typically, keeping a nice, healthy routine is very good for your mental health. Maybe by taking this person's work away from them, they're actually more likely to get depressed. So personally, I disagree with their ideas. Personally, I believe that congenial work with excitement and change would do me good, right? So we see what this person wants. This person thinks that, hey, I think working for me is good. Yes. Again, where it ended off is I take phosphates or phosphites, whichever it is, and tonics and air and exercise and journeys, and I'm absolutely forbidden to work until I am well again. Being given forced rest. Personally, I disagree with their ideas. I believe that congenial work with excitement and change would do me good. She wants to work. But what is one to do? I did write for a while in spite of them, but it does exhaust me a good deal. Having to be so sly about it, or else met with heavy opposition. So what are they saying? I'm writing in spite of them. They do not want her to write. Right? So what we're reading here, again, this story is written in the perspective of her journal entries. So when she's quote unquote writing, this is what it is. I sometimes fancy that in my condition, if I had less opposition and more society and stimulus, but John says the very worst thing I can do is think about my condition. And I confess it has always made me feel bad. So again, this is the 1800s really shining through, right? You know, my condition, my depressive condition, if only I felt supported, if only I was able to go out in the world, if only I had stuff to do, maybe that would make me feel better. Well, we know those are things that help with depression, right? But John says the very worst thing I can do is think about my condition, and I confess it always makes me feel bad. So I will let it alone and talk about the house. The most beautiful place. It is quite alone, standing well back from the road, quite 3 miles from the village. So she's in a very remote location, right? So she really is here alone. It's just her and her husband. That's it. So it's quite 3 miles from the village. It makes me think of the English places you read about, for there are hedges and walls and gates that lock, and lots of separate little houses for gardeners and people. So like this is like you've seen in the movies, like an English mansion type building with its own estate. There's a delicious garden. I never saw such a garden, large and shady, full of box bordered paths and lined with long grape covered arbors with seats under them. They were greenhouses, but they're all broken now. There was some legal trouble, I believe. Something about the hares and co-hares. Anyways, this place has been empty for years. That spoils my ghostliness. I'm afraid, but I don't care. There is something strange about this house. I can feel it. There's something strange about this house. I can feel it. I'm going to tell you right now, this is foreshadowed right here. I even said so to John one evening, but he said what I felt was a draught and shut the window. Again, John is a very practical person. It's like, nope, ghosts don't exist. You know, you're not feeling anything. They don't exist. I get unreasonably angry with John sometimes. I'm sure I never used to be so sensitive. I think it is due to this nervous condition. So she senses some changes in her. You know, I get unreasonably angry with John sometimes. Maybe you're unreasonably angry because your husband's not listening to you. But John says, if I feel so, I shall be neglect proper self-control. So I take pains to control myself, before him at least. And that makes me very tired. So again, we talked about how do you help with depression? You talk about it. She's not talking about it, right? So she's not talking about how she really feels. Or when she does, she gets shut down, right? I don't like our room. I don't like our room a bit. I want one and one downstairs that open onto the piazza and the roses all over the windows. And such pretty old-fashioned chinks hangings. But John would never hear of it. He said there was only one window and not room for two beds, and no near room for him if he took another. He is very careful and loving and hardly lets me stir without special direction. I have a scheduled prescription for each hour of the day. He takes all care from me. So I feel basely ungrateful to not value it more. So she has everything prepared for her, every single thing. She takes medication every hour. So what essentially this means is she doesn't do anything. Again, what makes you feel better? If you're depressed, I'm going to cook a nice meal. I'm going to clean my house. These are things we know that help. He said he came here solely on my account, that I was to have perfect rest and all the air I could get. Your exercise depends on your strength, my dear, he said, and your food somewhat on your appetite, but air you can absorb all the time. So he took the nursery at the top of the house. So again, he came here solely on my account, right? The only reason we're here is because of you. So what's this happening here? She is being blamed. We're here for you. And so they took the nursery at the top of the house. It is a big, airy room, the whole floor nearly, with windows that look all ways and air and sunshine galore. It was nursery first and then playroom and gymnasium. I should judge, for the windows are barred for little children, and there are rings and things in the walls. So the windows are barred for little children, right? So bars in the windows. So it's literally like a jail window. The painting paper looked as if the boys' school had used it. It is stripped off the paper in great patches all around the head of my bed, about as far as I can reach, and in great place on the other side of the room low down. I've never seen a worse paper of my life. One of those sprawling, flamboyant patterns committing every artistic sin. It is dull enough to confuse the eye, in following pronounced enough constantly to irritate and provoke study. And when you follow the lame, uncertain curves for a little distance, they suddenly commit suicide. They plunge off at outrageous angles, destroy themselves in an unheard of contradictions. So the wallpaper is horrendously ugly. Her room is ugly. She doesn't like it there. The color is repellent, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclean yellow, strangely faded by the slow turn in sunlight. It is a dull, lurid orange in some places, a sickly sulfur tint in others. No wonder the children hated it. I should hate it myself if I had to live in this room long. Again, we have foreshadowing here. There comes John. I must put this away. He hates to see me write a word. So she was put in this environment because she was feeling depressed. Knowing what we know now, 130 years later, is this probably a good environment for this person? Is this an environment that's probably going to help their depression or potentially make it worse? Probably could make it worse. Yeah. We've been here 2 weeks and I haven't felt like writing before since that first day. I am sitting by the window now, up in this atrocious nursery, and there is nothing to hinder my writing as much as I please, save lack of strength. John is away all day, and even some nights when his cases are serious. I'm glad my case is not serious, but these nervous troubles are dreadfully depressing. John does not know how much I really suffer. He knows there is no reason to suffer, and that satisfies him. Again, he is this practical person. What do you need? You need food and shelter and a nice bed to sleep in, right? And we need to remove all stress from you. Practically, he's right. But is she feeling supported? No. Is she around people? No. So right now we know that she is completely alone because John is away all day and even some nights. So we know that she is alone. We know that she's not supported emotionally. Of course, it is only nervousness. It does weigh on me to not do my duty. Sorry, of course, it is only nervousness. It does not weigh on me so not to do my duty in any way. I meant to be such a help to John, such a real rest and comfort, and here I am, prepared a burden already. So she's feeling worse about herself, right? Nobody would believe what an effort is to do what little I'm able to do, to dress and entertain and order things. hey, when you're depressed, those things take effort. Right? Sometimes it's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to, put on some clean clothes and cook a proper meal. It is fortunate Mary is so good with the baby, such a dear baby, and yet I cannot be with him. It makes me so nervous. So this is our first hint here that they have a baby, she's depressed. Postpartum, is it B? No, it is T. I suppose John never was nervous in life. He laughs at me so about this wallpaper. At first, he meant to repaper the room, but afterward, he said that I was letting it get the better of me, and that nothing was worse for a nervous patient than to give way to such fancies. He said that after the wallpaper was changed, it would be the heavy bedstead, and then the barred windows, and then the gate at the head of the stairs, and so on. You know this place is doing you good, he said. And really, dear, I don't care to renovate the house just for a 3 months rental. So you know the place is doing you good. Does she know that, though? It seems to be that she's getting worse. She's had less energy. She hasn't written in 2 weeks. So it's not really doing her much better. Not really doing her good. Then let us go downstairs, I said. There's such pretty rooms there. Then he took me in his arms and called me a blessed little goose and said he would go down cellar if I wished and have it whitewashed into the bargain. But he is right about the beds and the windows and things. It is airy and comfortable as a room as anyone need wish. And of course, I would not be so silly as to make him uncomfortable just for a whim. I'm getting really fond of the big room, but all that horrid paper. Out of one window, I can see the garden, those mysterious deep shaded arbors, the rituous old fashioned flowers and bushes and gnarly trees. Out of another window, I get a lovely view of the bay and a little private wharf belonging to the estate. There is a beautiful shaded lane that runs down there from the house. I always fancy I see people walking in these numerous paths and arbors, but John has cautioned me to not give way to fancies at the least. So let's talk about that. I think, I look through these windows and I think I always see people from my window of my yellow room. But her husband says, no, that's not true. There's not people there. They are in a remote location, right? We know that they're 3 miles away from the nearest village. This is in the 1800s. He said that with my imaginative power and habits of story making, a nervous weakness like mine is sure to lead to all manner of excited fantasies, and that I ought to use my will and good sense to check the tendency. So I try. I think sometimes that are only well enough to write a little, it would relieve the press of ideas and rest me. Isn't that a nice thing? Wouldn't it be nice to have a creative outlet? Again, this is what does she want? But I find I get pretty tired when I try. It is so discouraging not to have any advice and companionship about my work. When I get really well, John says we will ask Cousin Henry and Julia down for a long visit. But he said he would as soon put fireworks in my pillowcase as to let me have those stimulating people about right now. It's probably good when you're depressed, seeing your family. So again, there's more alone, there's more isolation here. I wish I could get well faster, but I must not think about it. This paper looks to me as if it knew what a vicious influence it had. So this is like starting to personify it in a sense. There is a recurrent spot where the pattern lolls like a broken neck and two bulbous eyes stare at you upside down. I got positively angry with the impertinence of it and the everlastingness. Up and down and sideways they crawl. Those absurd, unblinking eyes are everywhere. There's one place where two breaths didn't match, and the eyes go all up and down in the line, one a little higher than the other. So she's seeing eyes in the wallpaper. I never saw so much expression in an inanimate thing before. And we all know how much expression they have. I used to lie awake as a child and get more entertainment and terror out of blank walls and plain furniture than most children could find in a toy store. So she used to lay awake as a child, get more entertainment and terror out of blank walls and plain furniture. So what was her favorite childhood activity? She would stare at a white wall. Is that not a little concerning? We don't know what that means yet, but that's got to mean something, right? Her favorite thing as a kid was staring at a white wall. I'm going to put a red flag there. We don't know what that means yet, but that's going to mean something. I remember what a kindly wink the knobs of her old big bureau used to have, and there was one chair that always seemed like a strong friend. Let's go down to the next page. I used to feel that if any of the other things looked too fierce, I could always hop in that chair and be safe. The furniture in this room is no worse than the harness, however, for we had to bring it all from downstairs. I suppose when this was used as a playroom, they had to take the nursery things out, and no wonder. I never saw such ravages as the children have made here. The wallpaper, as I said before, is turned off in spots, and it sticketh closer than a brother. They must have had perseverance as well as hatred. So so a lot of the wallpaper's been torn off. This isn't the first mention of it. So this isn't the first mention of it, but it's a mention of it. And not only is it torn off in spots, it's a really sticky paper. Then the floor is scratched and gouged and splintered. The plaster itself is dug out here and there, and then this great heavy bed, which is all we found in the room, looks as if it had been through the wars. But I don't mind it a bit, only the paper. There comes John's sister. She's such a dear girl as she is, and so careful of me. I must not let her find me writing. She is a perfect and enthusiastic housekeeper and hopes for no better profession. I verily believe that she thinks it is the writing which is making me sick. But I can write when she is out and see her a long way off from these windows. There is one that commands the road, a lovely shaded winding road, and one that just looks off over the country. A lovely country too, full of elms and velvet meadows. The wallpaper has kind of a sub-pattern in a different shade, particularly irritating one, for you can only see it in certain lights, not clearly then. But in the places where it isn't faded and where the sun is just so, I can see a strange, provoking, formless sort of figure that seems to skulk around behind that silly and conspicuous front designs. Their sisters on the stairs. So again, when the sun's shining the right place, she can see a formless figure that seems to sneak about behind that silly and conspicuous front design. So she's seeing things here, right? So she's writing a lot about this wallpaper, right? Half of her journal entry was writing about the yellow wallpaper in her room. We know that this is a person who gets a lot of entertainment from just sitting as a kid and staring at a wall. So how do we think she's doing right now, like her mental status? Improving, getting worse. It's getting worse, right? Now, do you think there is something sneaking behind the walls, or do you think that she's seeing something? Sorry? So maybe she's being haunted. So she's either seeing things, or you see it, or we're just gonna say the house is haunted, or she is, or something, right? There's something haunted. So right now, those are the two realities, right? Like, hey, girl who likes staring at walls as a kid, you're staring a lot at this wall and seeing stuff. Or maybe her mental health is decreasing. But remember, when we first came in here, one of the first lines was, this house looks haunted, or something like that. Well, the 4th of July is over. The people are all gone, and I'm tired out. John thought it might do me good to see a little company, so we just had Mother and Nellie and the children down for a week. Of course I didn't do a thing. Jenny sees to everything now, but it tired me all the same. John says if I don't pick up faster, he shall send me to the Weir Mitchell in the fall. But I don't want to go there at all. I had a friend who was in his hands once, and she says he's just like John, my brother, only more so. So I think this is another doctor, maybe, Weir Mitchell. Maybe a specialist doctor. And she's heard bad things about him, right? She doesn't want to go to that doctor. Besides, it is such an undertaking to go so far. I don't feel as if it was worthwhile to turn my hand over for anything, and I'm getting dreadfully fretful and querulous. I cry at nothing and cry most of the time. Of course, I don't when John is there or anyone else, but when I am alone, and I am alone a good deal now. So what does she do when she's alone? She cries. When's she alone? All the time. She cries when alone, and is alone all the time. And not only that, she doesn't want people to know. She is not sharing the fact that she is this upset. So what is she doing? She's hiding how she really is right now. She's hiding how bad things are getting for her. We've seen now that things are getting worse. She's crying all the time now. Okay. Page 176. John is kept in town every often by serious cases, and Jenny is good and lets me alone when I want her to. So I walk a little in the garden and down that lovely lane, sit on the porch under the roses, and lie up here a good deal. I'm getting really fond of the room in spite of the wallpaper, perhaps because of the wallpaper. It dwells my mind so. So she went from hating this wallpaper to starting to like it because of the wallpaper. She's getting fond because of the wallpaper. So all of a sudden, she likes this wallpaper. I lie here on this great immovable bed. It is nailed down, I believe, and follows that pattern about by the hour. It is as good as gymnasts, I assure you. I start, we'll say, at the bottom, down the corner over there where he's not been touched. I determine for the 1,000th time that I will follow the pointless pattern to see some sort of conclusion. So what is she doing here? She's sitting on her bed, staring at the wall. So she lies on bed and she stares at the wall. So she's starting to slip. She's trying to find some type of a pattern to this chaos that is this wallpaper. I know little of the principle of design, and I know this thing was not arranged on any laws of radiation or alternation or repetition or symmetry or anything else I've ever heard of. It is repeated, of course, by the breadths, but not otherwise. Looked at it another way, each breath stand alone, the bloated curves and flourishes, a kind of debased Romanesque with delirium tremens go waddling up and down in isolated columns of fact shooting. But on the other hand, they connect diagonally and the sprawling outlines run off in great slanting waves of optic horror, like a lot of wallow of seaweeds in full chase. The thing goes horizontally too, at least it seems so, and I exhaust myself trying to distinguish the order of it going in that direction. They have used a horizontal breadth for a frieze, and that adds wonderfully to the conclusion. There is one end of the room where it is almost intact, and there, where the cross lights fade and the low sun shines directly on it, I can almost fancy radiation after all. The interminable grotesque seems to form around a common center and rush off in headline plunges of equal distraction. It makes me tired to follow it. I will take a nap, I guess. I don't know why I should write this. I don't want to. I don't feel able. And I know John would think it absurd, but I must say what I feel and think of some way. It is such a relief. And isn't that the case, right? That's why journaling is quite a healthy activity. But the effort is getting to be greater than the relief. Again, we see what she wants. She wants to be able to write in her journal. Oops, what she wants. Half the time now, I'm awfully lazy and lay down ever so much. John says I mustn't lose my strength and has me take cod liver oil and lots of tonics and things, to say nothing of ale and wine and rare meat. So what does she do now? She lays down all the time, half the time. Think about it. 8 hours of sleep, you have 16 hours a day. Half of that, she's laying up in her bed, staring at a wallpaper for 8 hours a day. Dear John, he loves me so dearly and hates to have me sick. I tried to have a real earnest, reasonable talk with him the other day and tell him how I wish he would let me go and make a visit to cousin Harry and Julia. So I tried to have a real earnest and reasonable talk with him the other day. How do you think he reacted? Do you think he was supportive, or do you think he's like, nope, you got to go stay in your room more? Let's find out. I wish you would let me go and make a visit to cousin Henry and Julia. But he said I wasn't able to go, nor am I able to stand it after I got there. And I did not make out a very good case for myself, for I was crying before I had finished. Again, she never likes to cry in front of him. It is getting to be a great effort for me to think straight, just as nervous weakness, I suppose. And dear John has gathered me up in his arms and just carried me upstairs and laid me on the bed and sat by me and read to me till it tired my head. He said I was his darling and his comfort and all he had, and that I must take care of myself for his sake and keep well. He says no one but myself can help me out of it, and that I must use my will and self-control and not let any silly fantasies run away from me. There's one comfort: the baby is well and happy, and does not have to occupy this nursery with the horrid wallpaper. If we had not used it, that blessed child would have. What a fortunate escape. Why, I wouldn't have a child of mine, an impressionable little thing, live in such a room for worlds. I never thought of it before, but it's lucky that John kept me here after all. I can stand it so much easier than a baby, you see. Of course, I never mention it to them anymore. I'm too wise, but I keep watch for it all the same. So I never mention it to them anymore. Mention what? Whenever we see it, we always want to know, what is it? So she's keeping secrets now. She's not sharing what she's seeing. There are things in the wallpaper that nobody knows about but me or ever will. There's things in the wallpaper and only I see them. So only she sees them. Behind that outside pattern, the dim shapes get clearer every day. It is always the same shape, only very numerous. And it is like a woman stooping down and creeping about behind that pattern. I don't like it a bit. I wonder, I begin to think, I wish John would take me away from here. So what she's seeing a woman stooping down and creeping around behind the wallpaper. So she sees a woman in the wall. It is hard to talk with John about my case because he is so wise and because he loves me so. But I tried it last night. He tried to talk to him again. It was moonlight, the moon shines, and all around just as the sun does. I hate to see it sometimes. It creeps so slowly, and it always comes by one window or another. John was asleep, and I hated to waken him. So I kept still and watched the moonlight on that undulating wallpaper till it felt creepy. The faint figure behind seemed to shake the pattern, just as if she wanted to get out. So she's seeing this woman now behind this wallpaper, and she's trying to get out. So she's seeing the woman in the wallpaper again. I got up softly and went to see if the paper did move. And when I came back, John was awake. What is it, little girl? He said. Don't go walking about like that. You'll get cold. I thought it was a good time to talk. So I told him that I was really not gaining here and that I wish he would take me away. It's like, hey, I really want to go from this house. It's making me worse. So again, she talks to John. And knowing John, he's probably not going to listen, right? Why, darling, he said, our lease will be up in 3 weeks, and I can't see how to leave before. So she talks to John. John doesn't listen. The repairs are not done at home, and I cannot possibly leave Japan just now. Of course, if you are in any danger, I could and would, but you really are better, dear, whether you can see it or not. I'm a doctor, dear, and I know you are gaining flesh and color. Your appetite is better, and I feel much easier about you. Again, if you were in any danger, I could and I would. Do we think that she is in any danger right now? Yeah. What kind of danger? Sorry? There's either a woman behind the wall or she's so out of it that she thinks there's a woman behind the wall. Either way, she is probably in danger right now, either to some haunted mythical being or as a danger to herself. I don't weigh a bit more, said I, nor as much. And my appetite may be better in the evening when you're here, but it is worse in the morning when you are away. Bless her little heart, he said he with a big hug. She shall be as sick as she pleases, but now let's improve the shining hours by going to sleep and talk about it in the morning. And you won't go away, I said gloomily. Why, how can I, dear? It is only 3 weeks more, and then we will take a nice little trip for a few days while Jenny's getting the house ready. Really, dear, you are better. Better in body, perhaps. I began and stopped short, for he sat up straight and looked at me with such a stern, reproachful look that I could not say another word. So better in body, right? Better in body, but worse than nothing. My darling, said he, I beg for you, for my sake, and for our child's sake, as well as for your own, that you will never for one instance let that idea enter your mind. Never let the idea that you are not okay enter your mind. That's what he's saying, right? Never let the idea that you are not okay enter your mind. That's what he's saying, right? The best thing to do when you're depressed is to deny being depressed, right?
You're never getting lost in your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing so dangerous, so fascinating to a temperament like yours. It is a false and foolish fancy. Can you not trust me as a physician when I tell you so? So of course I said no more on that score and went to sleep before long. He thought I was asleep first, but I wasn't, and I lay there for hours trying to decide whether that front pattern and the back pattern really did move together or separately. Again, and as we know, when you're depressed, the best thing you can do is stay up all night and stare at a wall. On a pattern like this by daylight, there is a sequence. There's a lack of sequence, a defiance of law that is a constant irritant to a normal mind. The color is hideous enough and unreliable and infuriated enough, but the pattern is torturing. You think you have mastered it, but just as you get well on your way in following, it turns into a back somersault, and there you are. It slaps you in the face, knocks you down, and tramples upon you. It is like a bad dream. The outside pattern is a florid arabesque, reminding one of fungus. If you can imagine a toadstool in joints, an interminable string of toadstools, budding and sprouting in endless convolutions. Why, that is something like that. That's almost like, I don't know, like rainbow colors kind of like popping out and stuff. It's almost psychedelic in essence. That is sometimes. There's one marked peculiarity about this paper, a thing nobody seems to notice but myself. And that it changes as the light changes. Again, I'm seeing stuff that no one else is seeing. When the sun shoots into the east window, I can always watch for the first long, straight ray. It changes so quickly that I can never quite believe it. That is why I always watch it. She's always staring at her, piece in the wall. By moonlight, the moon shines in all night. When there is a moon, I wouldn't know if it was the same paper. At night, in any kind of light, in twilight, candlelight, lamplight, and worst of all, by moonlight, it becomes bars. The outside pattern, I mean, and the woman behind it is as plain as can be. So the wallpaper becomes bars. And in particular, they're talking about prison bars here, right? And the woman behind is as plain can be. So there's prison bars, and there's the woman again. I didn't realize that for a long time that the thing, I didn't realize for a long time what the thing was that showed behind that dim sub pattern, but now I'm quite sure it is a woman. By daylight she is subdued, quiet. I fancy it is the pattern that keeps her so still. It is so puzzling. It keeps me quiet by the hour. So what does she see? She's during the day, she thinks, hey, this woman is not active during the day. She's quiet. She's subdued. So inactive during the day. I lie down ever so much now. John says it is good for me and to sleep all I can. Indeed, he started that habit by making me lie down for an hour each meal. It is a very bad habit, I'm convinced. For you see, I don't sleep. So yeah, it is kind of a bad habit. And that cultivates deceit, for I don't tell him I'm awake. Oh no. The fact is I'm getting a little afraid of John. He seems very queer sometimes, and even Jenny has an inexplicable look. So what's happening here is she started to get paranoid. They're out to get me. It strikes me occasionally, just as a scientific hypothesis, that perhaps it is the paper. Maybe it's the paper that's doing it. I have watched John when he did not know what I was looking and come into the room on the most innocent excuses. And I've caught him several times looking at the paper. And Jenny too. I caught Jenny with her hand on it once. She didn't know that I was in the room. And when I asked her in a very quiet voice, with the most restrained manner possible, what she was doing with the paper, she turned around as if she'd been caught stealing and looked quite angry, asked me why I should frighten her so. Then she said that the paper stained everything it touched, that she had found yellow smooches on all my clothes and John's, and she wished we would be more careful. Did that not sound innocent? But I know that she was studying that pattern, and I'm determined that nobody should find it out but myself. Again, did that not sound innocent? It's the fact that, that's a very reasonable excuse. It's an excuse. Again, we're starting to see that she's getting a little paranoid. Life is very much more exciting now than it used to be. You see, I have something more to expect, to look forward to watch. I really do eat better and I'm more quiet than I was. So life is better now. So she thinks that life is better. We'll find out why she thinks her life is so much better now. She went from I'm feeling worse. I think I'm taking a decline. John's not listening to me. I think this is what I need. And all of a sudden, life's better now. It's more exciting. John is so pleased to see me improved. He laughed a little the other day and said I seem to be flourishing in spite of my wallpaper. I turned it off with a laugh. I had no intention of telling him it was because of the wallpaper. So she's feeling better because of the wallpaper. He might even try to take me away. Isn't that what she wanted? She wanted to leave. Now she wants to stay. I don't want to leave now until I found it. There's a week more, and I think that will be enough. I'm feeling so much better. I don't sleep much at night, for it is so interesting to watch the developments, but I sleep a good deal during the daytime. Again, we know that that's incredibly healthy for your mental health. In the daytime, it is tiresome and perplexing. What does the woman in the wallpaper do during the daytime? Nothing, right? During the daytime, the woman in the wallpaper is subdued. During the daytime, our protagonist is subdued as well. She doesn't do anything during the day. Neither women do anything during the day. But when are they active? They're active at night. There are always new shoots on the fungus and a new shade of yellow over it. I cannot keep count of them, though I have tried conscientiously. It is the strangest yellow, the wallpaper. It makes me think of all the yellow things I never saw. Not beautiful ones like the buttercups, but old, foul, bad yellow things. But there's something else about that paper, the smell. I noticed that the moment we came into the room, but with so much air and sun, it was not bad. Now that we've had a week of fog and rain, and whether the windows are open or not, the smell is here, and it creeps all over the house. So thinking about the smell, Now, if we were looking at this through the lens of like, hey, this was written a couple years ago, we would maybe think this was mold. But this is probably not mold. This is written in the 1800s, not something we really think about. But so we've noticed the smell now. Now that I've locked all the windows, I start smelling this more. Again, we know fresh air is good when you are depressed. We've taken away the fresh air now. I find it hovering in the dinner room, skulking in the parlor, hiding in the hall, lying away from me on the stairs. It gets into my hair. And when I go to ride, if I turn my head suddenly and surprise, there's that smell. Such a peculiar odor, too. I have spent hours trying to analyze it and find what it smelled like. It's not bad at first and very gentle, but quite the subtlest, most enduring odor I've ever met. In this damp weather, it is awful. I wake up at night and find it hanging over me. It used to disturb me at first. I thought seriously of burning the house to reach the smell. I've been thinking very seriously about burning down my house in the middle of the night. So she's thinking about burning down the house, right? But now I'm used to it. And the only thing I can think of is that it is like this color of the wallpaper, a yellow smell. She's smelling colors, guys. There's a very funny mark on this wall, low down, near the mopboard, a streak that runs around the room. It goes behind every piece of furniture except the bed. A long, straight, even smooch, as if it had been rubbed over and over. I wonder how it was done and who did it, and what they did it for. Round and round and round, round and round and round. It makes me dizzy. I really have discovered something at last. Through watching so much at night, when it changes so, I have finally found out. The front pattern does move. No wonder the woman behind shakes it. So we see the woman again. And sometimes I think there are a great many women behind, and sometimes only one. And she crawls around fast, and her crawling shakes all over. So sometimes she thinks there's lots of women behind this wall, and sometimes it's just the one. Then in the very bright spots, she keeps still. And in the very shady spots, she takes hold of the bars and shakes them hard. She takes hold of the bars and shakes them hard. Again, the bars. This is a prison. And at night, this prisoner is trying to get out. And she's all the time trying to climb through, but nobody could climb through that pattern. It strangles so. And I think that is why it has so many heads. We're going to try and finish this. They get through, and then the pattern strangles them off and turns them upside down and makes their eyes white. If those heads were covered or taken off, it would not be half so bad. I think that woman gets out in daytime, and I'll tell you why. Privately, I've seen her. I've seen the woman. I can see her out of every one of my windows. Every single window in my room, I can see this woman during the day. It is the same woman I know, for she is always creeping, and most women do not creep by daylight. Again, we're seeing this woman. The woman escapes during the day. I see her in that lawn-shaded lane, creeping up and down. I see her in those dark grape arbors, creeping around or all around the garden. I see her on that lawn road under the trees, creeping along. And when a carriage comes, she hides under the blackberry vines. So only she can see her. I don't blame her a bit. It must be very humiliating to be caught creeping by daylight. I always lock the door when I creep by daylight. I can't do it at night, for I know John would suspect something at once. So she creeps as well. Why can't you do it at night? Because John's there. But during the day, John's gone. So she creeps during the day. And John is so clear now that I don't want to irritate him. I wish he would take me. I wish he would take another room. Besides, I don't want anyone to get that woman out at night but myself. I often wonder if I could see her out of all the windows at once, but turn as fast as I can only see her out of one at one time. And though I always see her, she may be able to creep faster than I can turn. I've watched her sometimes away off in the open country, creeping as fast as a cloud shadow in the wind. So maybe she's literally just seeing a shadow. If only that top pattern could be gotten off from under one. I meant to try it little by little. I found out another funny thing, but I shan't let it tell it this time. It does not trust people too much. There are only 2 more days to get this paper off, and I believe John is beginning to notice. I don't like the look in his eyes. I have heard him ask Jenny a lot of professional questions about me. She had a very report to give. She said I slept a good deal in the daytime. John knows I don't sleep well at night. For all I'm so quiet. He asked me all sorts of questions too, and pretended to be loving and kind, right? So, do we think that John, her husband, is loving and kind to her? Emotionally, no. Physically, I think so. Like he does know better, but he's trying. But emotionally, he doesn't get it. Emotionally, no. But if we're looking at physical needs, yes. At least that's my 2 cents. You're welcome to argue otherwise. As if I couldn't see through him. Still, I don't wonder he acts so. Sleeping under this paper for 3 months. It only interests me, but I'm sure John and Jenny are affected by it. Hurrah, this is the last day, but it is enough. John is to stay in town overnight and won't be out until this evening. Jenny wanted to sleep with me, the sly thing, but I told her I should undoubtedly rest better for a night all alone. That was clever, for really, I wasn't alone a bit. As soon as it was moonlight and the poor thing began to crawl and shake the pattern, I got up and ran to help her. I pulled and she shook. I pulled and she shook. I pulled and she shook. I shook and she pulled. So the word under that is very particular. I pulled and she shook. I shook and she pulled. And before morning, we had peeled off yards of that paper. So what are they doing? She is escaping the wallpaper. I struck about as high as my head and half around the room. And then when the sun came and that awful pattern began to laugh at me, I declared I would finish it today. We go away tomorrow, and they are moving all the furniture down again and leave things as they were before. Jenny looked at the wall in amazement, but I told her merely that I did it out of pure spite at the vicious thing. She laughed and said she wouldn't mind doing it herself, but I must not get tired. So what's her excuse? Is I hate this wall so much, I just wanted to rip it. how she betrayed herself that time. But I am here, and no person touches the wallpaper but me, not alive. He tried to get me out of the room. It was too patent. But I said it was so quiet and empty and clean now that I believed I would lie down again and sleep all I could, and not to wake me even for dinner. I would call when I woke. So now she is gone, and the servants are gone, and the things are gone, and there's nothing left but the great bedstead nailed down with the canvas mattress we found on it. We shall sleep downstairs tonight, but take the boat home tomorrow. I quite enjoy the room. Now it is bare again. How those children did tear about here. The bedstead is fairly gnawed, but I must get to work. I have locked the door and thrown the key down into the front path. I don't want to go out, and I don't want to have anyone come in till John comes. I want to astonish him. I've got a rope up here that even Jenny did not find, and if that woman does get out and tries to get away, I can tie her. So she has a rope here that no one knows about. What do you think she's going to do with that rope? She says she's going to tie up this thing in the wall. But I forgot I could not reach that far without anything to stand on. This bed will not move. This nailed down bed will not move. I tried to lift and push it until I was lame. Then I got so angry, I bit off a little piece at the corner, but it hurt my teeth. So she's biting the bed corner now. The bedstead that's fairly gnawed. We have rope, and she's biting the bed. Then I peeled off all that paper I could reach in then I peeled off all the paper I could reach standing on the floor. It sticks horribly and the pattern just enjoys it. All those strangled heads, bulbous eyes, and waddling fungus growths just shriek with derision. I was getting angry enough to do something desperate. To jump out the window would be an admirable exercise, but the bars are too strong to try it. So maybe I'll just, if I jump out the window, that's a good exercise, right? But obviously, she can't because they're barred. So she can't go through the window. So what's she going to do? Besides, I wouldn't do it. Of course not. I know well enough that a step like that is improper and might be misconstrued. They might think I'm, crazy because I'm jumping out the window, not because I wanted exercise. I don't like to look out the window even. There are so many of those creeping women, and they creep so fast. I wonder if they all come out of the wallpaper as I did. So she's saying that she came out of the paper as I did. They come out of the paper as I did. And there are so many creeping women. But I'm securely fastened now by my well-hidden rope. You don't get me out in the road there. I suppose I'll have to get back behind the pattern when it comes at night, and that is hard. So again, what was this rope for? This rope was to tie up this woman behind the wall. She's coming out of the paper. She's now fastened with that rope. She's going to try and get back behind the pattern at nighttime. It is so pleasant to be out in this great room and creep around as I please. She's the one creeping. So, is she the woman? Maybe. Right? She's doing all the things she says that this woman behind the wall does. She creeps. She's the one that's going to get tied up. She's coming out of the wallpaper. I don't want to go outside. I won't, even if Jenny asks me to. For outside, you have to creep around on the ground, and everything is green instead of yellow. But here I can creep smoothly on the floor, and my shoulder just fits in that long smooch around the wall, so I cannot lose my way. Why, there's John at the door. It's no use, young man, you can't open it. Now he's crying to Jenny for an axe. It would be a shame to break down that beautiful door. John, dear, said I in the gentlest voice, the key is down by the front step under a plantain leaf. That silenced him for a few moments. Then he came, very quietly indeed. Open the door, my darling. I can't, said I. The key is down by the front door under a plantain leaf. And then I said it again, several times, very gently and slowly, and said it so often that I had to go and see. And he got it, of course, and came in, and he stopped by the door. What's the matter? He cried. For God's sake, what are you doing? I kept on creeping just the same, but I looked at him over my shoulder. I got out at last, said I, in spite of you and Jane, and I pulled off most of the paper, so now you can't pull me back in. So I've got out at last, right? She's the woman in the wallpaper. She's the one. She finally got out. This is a very powerful quote that you're probably going to end up using at some point. I'm going to have you guys just quickly star that one. I got out in spite of you and Jane. Now, why should that man have fainted? But he did, and right across my path by the wall, so that I have to creep over him every time. And that's the end of the story. And so this yellow wallpaper can be seen as a story of obsession related to Edgar Allan Poe's He's the Dude of the Raven, The Fall of the House of Usher. But the psychological state of Charlotte Perkins Gilman is of more than literary interest. So Gilman herself was a double victim in now what we would call a depression. A victim once from the disease and once again from the failure of others to understand the disease. So why did this author write this piece? Because the author was depressed, and the author said that, that she was a victim of people not understanding that she was depressed. And what makes it better? What makes it worse? So we can see here that the author was two things. One was depressed, and two, had no one around who understood depression. Yeah. Okay. So that is the yellow wallpaper. So just for the sake of time, we're not going to fully go over it here. We'll cut for lunch here in just a second. So what's going to happen is tomorrow, I think we're going to start going through this piece, or we're going to do the video. So the next 2 days are going to mostly be focused on this piece. We are going to watch a movie, and we are going to also analyze this piece as well. So with that, we're going to head for lunch here, and we'll come back at 12:30.